Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello students, welcome to the 8th lecture of Women's Writing. In this lecture, we are going to study a topic called female body as text. So when you engage with a text and you see that those are only written words printed on a paper, maybe written on a diary, you think that that is a text. A text is something we read, it is bound within pages and it is something you can carry around. So let us see how this particular idea of female body being a text can be entertained in this particular lecture. So I have used a word over here, destiny. Destiny of a text. What does the text aspire to? The text always requires a reader, somebody to interpret it, somebody to assemble the meaning from the text, somebody to understand the nuances of the subtexts as well. So that is the destiny that we can consider. If a book which has been written by an author has never received readership, has never been opened by any person, has never seen the light of the day, should we be calling it a text? Of course, it will be called a text which is lying somewhere else, but nobody knows about it. What kind of text is that? So, always a text requires, demands, appeals for interpretation, to be read. So, is reading and interpreting the same thing? Well, we will have to learn about that as we proceed through this lecture. What is a text? Is it a good question to begin with? I initially wanted to title the slide as what is a text, but I did not because we cannot define a text. If we try to define it, then we will face many difficulties, because whatever we try to analyze, whatever we try to understand through our logical faculties goes unsaid into the realm of interpretation. And once it enters the realm of interpretation, it becomes a text. So, if we only think that, oh, the text is a book, the text is a kind of, a movie can be a text, a picture can be a text, and we can always say, for example, this pen cannot be a text, this glasses cannot be a text, but the text will of course be within a context. The text without the context cannot survive. So I will write over here another very important word, that is context. The pen in a particular context can be a very symbolic object. Suppose if it is being gifted by a father to the son, it will interpret, it will represent that the father is bequeathing a part of himself to the son. The mother will be bequeathing a part of her penmanship to her daughter. All of these things we will have to consider when we are talking about the daily common objects. Once it is placed within a context, it has the capacity, it has the potential, it has the possibility of becoming a text. So, in today's context, anything that can be interpreted is a text. That can be interpreted. The most common thing that we interpret are actions. A very common example, if you are thirsty and somebody understands that and gives you water, you did not even ask for that. Once you receive the water, you interpret that action. You interpret it as kindness. You see that this person has offered me a glass of water and that is an act of kindness. You are not thinking what that person is thinking. that the person is thinking that this person, this fellow traveler, this somebody who is sitting in front of me is tired, and let me give him or her a glass of water, and so that he can move on his way, and my space will be saved. So everywhere there is a context and an interpretation. You as a traveler, you will be thinking that, oh, this person is very kind, but the person can be thinking, let me give this one a glass of water so that he can go or she can go away as soon as possible. So the interpretation on your part is different, and the body which has done the action, the mind of that body, that mind has a different kind of explanation, has a different kind of purpose, has interpreted his own actions, has planned his or her strategy in a different way. So these things we'll have to keep in mind. Therefore, we also need to keep in mind that the body is a biological being. It is an organism. This hand, this is an organ of this particular body, and this hand is a different organ. Of course, you are having a pair of hands. You have a pair of eyes, you have one nose. All of them have separate works to do, and they are doing their works as much as the brain is asking them to do. Now, there is a difference between an organ and a concept. That is where the word mind comes in. Can we say that the brain is the mind? Can we say that? Because mind is something which is related to the domain of philosophy, related to the domain of spirituality. You cannot say where the mind is. You can only say the brain is in the upper section of the body, that is called head, and somewhere behind our eyes we think. And when we think and we think too much, we overthink, our brain starts hurting. That way you understand that your process of thinking is going on over here. But the entire association of ideas, the entire history of your memory, everything that is being stored and processed and reprocessed, visited and revisited again and again, makes up what you understand as your mind. That is why we have expressions like narrow-minded, broad-minded. Does that mean that the brain has become narrow and the brain has become broad? No, of course not. The brain retains its original shape. Only the information, the way it processes, the way it has been trained to process, or rather the way the genetics of that person shows that it will learn from the mistakes, it will not learn from the mistakes, and it will take these kind of inputs and process it like that. All of those things come into the construction of the thing called mind. And the mind can be studied only in the realm of philosophy. The way you are acting is, of course, a representation of your mind. Now, you will also notice that in the previous lectures, I have also mentioned the domain of psychology, where you are studying mind. And whenever you are studying that part of the mind, then it is not actually how the mind represents or how the mind commands your body to act, rather how those commands originate in your mind to begin with. That part you study in psychology, and that part exactly Sigmund Freud studied in his proposed theory of psychoanalysis. They are studying in psychoanalysis what makes the mind the mind. And in philosophical realm, what the mind can become, what the mind can attain, what kind of training the mind can have, all the external possibilities of the mind, the potential of the human mind are generally addressed. So now we know that there is a clear distinction between the body and the mind. And in our case, we mostly interpret the body because the body is doing the actions. If I go and hurt a small dog who is walking right in front of me, anybody who is going to see that is going to have an idea of me as a very cruel person. If I go and help an old woman crossing the road without her asking for help, anybody, a bystander, will consider this and interpret my actions as something which is an act of kindness, will say that this person is very kind. So whatever we do, we are judged mostly by our actions, and that actions are done by the body. Now, what the female body can do? What are the actions that specifically are associated with the female body? Reproduce, represent the site of honor, represent the site of masculine sexual gratification. This is the general idea of what the female body is capable of in case of the patriarchal societies that we live in. Number one, the female bodies can reproduce. The male body will not be able to carry a child. But here it is very funny, or rather very ironic to note that men are completely denied the entry into the process of reproduction when it comes to being represented as reproducers. Because of course reproduction does not take place by a female body single-handedly. We all know that. The discipline of biology, if anybody studies right from standard 5 to standard 10, will know the process of reproduction. There is no hidden concept here. So why are men excluded from the process of reproduction? Why are they not included within it? Why do we keep the female body as the symbol of reproduction? Next, representing the site of honor. This is a big problem in our society nowadays. When the female body is dehumanized, is assaulted, is violated, is harassed, we always consider it a matter of honor. Honor for the entire family, not only for the female. The entire family is said that, oh, your daughter or your mother or your sister or your wife, they are being harassed, it's such a shame. Why? Why is the female body a part of that kind of idea? Why does honor reside in the body of the female? That if the female body is touched or is made or subjugated by any person who is not authorized by the society to do so, because we know the events of domestic violence. So why is society treating the women who are sexually harassed as faux pas? So this is something which we need to discuss and bring into discourse. Moving on to the next point, represent the site of masculine sexual gratification. In the larger domain of the patriarchal hegemony, that is the disparity of the power, why are women's bodies looked upon as the site of sexual gratification? Why is it like that? Whenever a woman is born, it is taken for granted that she has taken birth for the pleasure of man. Why is this kind of situation or idea still persisting in our society? We need to address these questions. And many women writers have addressed these questions, saying that these are something which are old and which are patriarchal, and we must rise above these generalizations. Whenever the woman's body is represented as having the capacity of doing these particular works, what kind of interpretations do we have about the body of a woman? Let us see. Female body as text. Commodification of the female body. Now, you might be very much aware of a commodity. A commodity is something which is sold, which is bought, which is used and consumed, and there is a demand and a supply for commodities. Commodities are the things that you use in your everyday life. It can be the utensils, it can be the stationery, it can be the beauty products, it can be the clothes you wear, everything that you can sell and you can buy and which increases the comfort of your life, which increases the quality of your life, is a commodity. So, why do we think that the female body is a commodity? The female body is thought of as a commodity because it is objectively portrayed in the media. Whenever, take for example, whenever you watch a movie or whenever you watch a series, an advertisement, you will always find women who have otherwise fairer skin, and they have put on a lot of makeup and they have a kind of figure which generally common women do not possess, and they are shown and they are praised and they are displayed as the ideal women figure or ideal women face, and this is how the female body should be, and that also from the point of view of the men, because people think that men, the investors think that men will be attracted to their product, men will be attracted to their particular whatever they are selling once they see that kind of figure in front of them. So, to draw the audience, which they think is majority of men, they consider portraying a feminine figure with all the feminine graces they have will draw enough amount of money from the consumers. So, that is how you turn the female body into a commodity. You are selling it. Concept of labor and the labor of love. Because the body of a woman, it can of course produce a child, carry it for 9 months and then develop lots of complications under these circumstances where women are staying back at home and they are doing all the household chores. So, all of these contribute to the labor of love. Now, what is the labor of love? It is the kind of labor, generally labor is something for which you get paid. If you are not getting paid for the work you are doing, it is considered as the labor of love. For example, a mother is not getting paid for raising a child. A mother or a woman in the house will not be paid for looking after the old people in the house, and they will not be paid for cooking, they will not be paid for cleaning in their own house. None of the activities that she is engaging in from morning till night are payable in terms of money. Only what they are going to get is the status of being a husband, of status of being a wife of somebody, a status of being a mother of somebody, the daughter of somebody and the sister of somebody, and that somebody needs to be a male figure. This is very interesting to note that all the identities of these women revolve around the male figures. When you do the labor of love and you don't get paid for it, you are also not allowed to complain, because you will be eulogized, you will be praised, and you will be showered with admiration for your sacrifices, your compromises, but you will have no say in the family matters, you will have no decision making capacity in the family. So, that kind of thing is only vested with the male members, because they are bringing in the income, they are paying for the vegetables, they are paying for the food, they are paying for the stationery, they are paying for the furniture. All of these things are being paid by the male members. They will have the right to take decisions on family matters, not the women, because they do not have economic independence. But that same woman will be working, will be trying to do all the household chores by using her body, of course, and try to make the quality of life in that house a bit better than it was yesterday. So, in this particular excerpt from Sisu, the laugh of the Medusa, we see a very interesting concept. I shall speak about women's writing, about what it will do. See, I again emphasize that the action that is being referred to here is the way the body enacts itself, expresses itself. Women must write. Now, writing is that kind of action by which women will be expressing herself, and by that action she will be interpreted in a certain way. Must write about women and bring women to writing, from which they have been driven away as violently as from their bodies. So, the act of writing is the way in which they will bring back women and make them once again the sole monarchs of their own bodies, because their bodies, their actions are always dictated and ruled by the male figures, the men of the society. For the same reason, by the same law, with the same fatal goal, woman must put herself into the text as into the world and into history by her own movement. Again, see the word movement. That means we have to move ourselves. There cannot be a movement without the movement of your body. Your mind alone cannot create a movement. That is the limitation of the mind. The mind can flutter away from here and there, nobody will see that. But in order to create a movement, anything, any part of your body must move. And once woman starts writing, especially moving her pen over the piece of paper which she had kept on her desk, she will be writing herself back into her body. She will be in charge of the pen and the paper and the words. Once she gains that kind of confidence to put her own opinions, to put her own reflections on the paper, then she will gain that kind of confidence to make her own decisions in her personal life also. Here there is a person called Kate Millett. I have discussed her in some other lectures. She has written a book, Sexual Politics, and published in 1970. It was originally a PhD thesis. She was not allowed to submit it because she was criticizing the authors D.H. Lawrence, Henry Miller and Norman Mailer. They were very much popular authors of that time. At that time, criticizing these authors for projecting women as objects, as passive receivers of the work that is being done by the subject, was something very blasphemous, especially in the realm of theory, literary theory, philosophy, literature, history of literature, and all the related disciplines. So she was heavily criticized. She was not allowed to submit her thesis, and after a long and arduous battle, she was able to finally submit it, get her PhD and publish it as a book. And it created an uproar, a furor kind of thing throughout the women's movement, that they have received one of the most important texts, a manifesto, which will add to the value of the women's movement, called feminism at that time. So this book shows how the female characters, they stay at the backstage. They are shown to be sensitive in a wrong kind of sense. They are more prone to emotions. They are shown to be irrational at times. And of course, they are shown to have been sexually assaulted by the male characters and having enjoyed that. This kind of encounter creates an idea in the minds of the audience that women enjoy that kind of approach. This false idea again promotes the cause of violent sexual acts like rape. So these kind of books have been criticized by Kate Millett in 1970. Her contribution remains very important till this date. So in Laugh of the Medusa, that is the essay Helen Sissue has written, she coins the term écriture féminine. I have discussed this already, introduced the concept in the first lecture. Let us understand what is she again trying to say? Now, this is an excerpt from the essay The Laugh of the Medusa, which was published in 1976. I have already introduced this in the first lecture. Let us have a quick read of this particular section. And why don't you write? Write. Writing is for you. You are for you. Your body is yours. Take it. I know you haven't written, and why I didn't write before the age of 27. Because this is again an autobiographical statement. Because writing is at once too high, too great for you. It's reserved for the great, that is for great men. And it's silly because you have written a little but in secret. And it wasn't good because it was in secret. And because you punished yourself for writing, because you didn't go all the way, or because you wrote irresistibly. So the act of writing here is like enjoying. She is trying to say that you must try to enjoy the act of writing. And whatever you did it secretly, and you did not do this in front of everybody. You must start writing. Here, because it was in secret and because you punished yourself for writing, this particular sentence says that in order to write, you must be granted the permission by the male society, because writing is reserved for the intellectually advanced race of men. That is what the general concept you have been keeping in your mind till today. You did not consider that you as a woman can also make your valuable contribution to the domain of writing, literature, history, sociology, political science, whatever you feel like. You have never started. That is the problem. So you must start today. Here, Helen Sissou herself confesses that she hadn't written anything till the age of 27. She only started writing after that, when she realized that this is the only way that I can gain the control of my own life. She encourages any other woman writer, whoever is reading this text, to engage her body into the act of writing. Here, I will also mention a very popular proverb, which is empowered women empower women. That only those women who have been empowered, they have received that power within herself to create something, to stand up on her 2 feet and claim what is hers. So all of these things, when a woman has accomplished, she also tries to share this kind of perspective among her fellow women. This is one of the texts prescribed in your course, Stanodayini or Breast Giver by Mahashweta Devi. Mahashweta Devi has been the recipient of the Sahitya Akademi Award. She has received the Gyanpith Award and Padma Bhushan. All of the most important and respectable awards of India has either nominated or awarded Mahashweta Devi for her extensive work on feminism, especially with a Marxist slant. So this is the story of a person called Jashoda. She is married to the relative of a rich Brahmin family, but her husband is not that rich and he is just a worker in a sweet shop. Her husband earns the money, she raises the kids. At one unfortunate afternoon, her husband meets an accident and he is rendered without legs for walking. So what she does is, she goes to the rich relative's house and asks for work or for money or food, because they are respectable Brahmins and they should not beg here and there, and this will bring a bad name to the entire Haldar family. So all of this is set in West Bengal, especially a rural area, and the matriarch of that particular house, that is the person who is in charge, she says that all right, we will give you the money, we will give you the essential goods to go by. What you have to do, as I see that you have children and your breasts are full of milk, you suckle all the children in our household, because at this point of time our daughter-in-laws are not ready to suckle their kids. Here we will read, daughters-in-law will be mothers. When they are mothers, they will suckle their children. Since they will be mothers as long as it's possible, progressive suckling will ruin their shape. Then if the sons look outside or harass the maid servants, she won't have a voice to object. Going out because they can't get it at home, this is just. If Jashoda becomes the infant's suckling mother, her daily meals, clothes on feast days and some monthly pay will be enough. So this is the transaction they have, this is the business deal they have, that Jashoda is going to suckle the children of all the daughters-in-law of Haldar family, and instead of that she will receive the household daily goods and a little payment. So we see that Jashoda is making use of her maternity. She is using her body to earn the livelihood of the family, and she is not thinking twice because the pay is very good. Her body which is now producing child is able to nurture other children, will be now put into use for children of the daughters-in-law, because according to their notion that if they suckle their children for very long, their shape, their beauty will go away and their husbands will leave them and go somewhere else. They will not be able to say that you shouldn't go. So this kind of mentality leads Jashoda to take up that position, and you will be surprised to know Mahashweta Devi uses a phrase called the professional mother, which I have discussed in the next point. Kangali Charan is the husband of Jashoda. The duty of Kangali Charan in the process of reproduction is to keep Yashoda pregnant all the time, so that she will be able to give milk and suckle the children of the household babus, thereby relieving the daughters-in-law from the duty of nurturing and caring for their own children. So Kangali Charan became a professional father, Jashoda became a professional mother. So now the mother, the quality of the mother that we know is sacrifice and compromise and the labor of love that we have been talking about till now, that labor of love is now being commercialized. So now it is the time for her act of breastfeeding to be a part of the mercantile economy. She is now a businesswoman. She is using her capacity, her body to produce milk and thereby sustain the family and bring income along with that. Of course, this is exploitation and alienation. Exploitation, labor I have discussed. Why exploitation? Because Jashoda is unaware of the consequences of this kind of act. Although she is commercializing her body, she does not know that keeping yourself pregnant all the time and suckling almost 50 children will have some negative impact on her body. Just because she did not have that kind of education or awareness regarding the reproductive health of a mother's body, she took the job without any constraints. What happens thereafter? In the night she sent Basini. Basini is a helper. This is when Jashoda has grown very old. She is not breastfeeding anymore and the babus are not producing children because the Western education has introduced the concept of family planning. They are not producing that many children nowadays, and that is why Jashoda is out of work. In the night she sent Basini for Lifebuoy soap, and at dawn she went to take a bath with the soap. Stink! What a stink! If the body of a dead cat or dog rots in the garbage, you can get a smell like this. So Jashoda goes to take a bath. She smells a kind of stinking smell which can only rise from the dead carcasses of either the dog or the cat or some other animals in the neighborhood. Yashoda had forever scrubbed her breasts carefully with soap and oil, for the master's sons had put the nipples in their mouth. Why did those breasts betray her in the end? Her skin burns with the sting of soap. Still Yashoda washed herself with soap. Her head was ringing, everything seemed dark. There was fire in Yashoda's body, in her head. The black floor was very cool. Yashoda spread her sari and lay down. She could not bear the weight of her breasts standing up. So the breasts that have been feeding over 50 children, or rather countless children, because they have really not kept account, these breasts are rotting now. They are suffering from cancer. Yashoda has breast cancer. And when the wounds appear on the surface of the breasts, they start to stink like the dead carcass of animals. And Yashoda cannot believe this, because she has been pampering her breasts and keeping them very neat and clean. And because, of course, if you are working somewhere and you have a machine, you always respect that machine because it is earning food. It is putting food on your table. So at that point of time, Yashoda is surprised to see that what kind of deterioration her machines have gone to, because this is the one she tried to rely on while earning money. So she is suffering from breast cancer, her body is failing, she is in intolerable, excruciating pain, mental and physical, and she cannot take it anymore. She cannot stand up because her breasts are full of wound and they are pulled down by the gravity and the wounds are spreading by that. So the commercialization of your body creates a problem for her in the future. She initially rejected the idea that this can have any side effects, but it did. When the time came, she was suffering from breast cancer, and because she lacked that kind of education to go and visit a doctor, it spread to the limits, to the final stage, and nobody could stop that. So this kind of commercialization we also see in the current trend of surrogacy. If you are aware of surrogacy, surrogacy is renting your wombs. If some woman is not able to conceive a child because of the weak uterus she is having, then she will give her egg and the husband will give the sperm, and when the fertilization is done, that particular embryo will be planted into some other female body's uterus. So there the embryo will grow into a child. When the child will be delivered, it will be given back to its parents. That is a rental service for the wombs, and that is now becoming a practice here in India also. You will be surprised to know that India is a tourist destination for people who are trying to find commercial surrogacy services. Now, I have talked about Draupadi in other sections, in other lectures also. And I have exactly quoted this passage because this creates a kind of a counter discourse. Whenever you are saying something and you are creating a discourse by giving ideas in support of your argument, there will again rise an antithesis, a counter discourse. So if there is a language of patriarchy, there will always be a language which is opposing that patriarchy, and this particular instance or excerpt from the text is a very good example. Her ravished lips bleed as she begins laughing. So at this point of time, Draupadi, the tribal rebel leader who has been captured by the police, she has been sexually abused the whole night, but she is still standing and she is laughing. Draupadi wipes the blood on her palm and says in a voice that is terrifying, sky-splitting and sharp as our ululation, "What's the use of clothes? You can strip me, but can you clothe me again? Are you a man?" She looks around and chooses the front of Senanayak's white bush shirt to spit a bloody gob at and says, "There isn't a man here that should be ashamed of." So now the actions, let us look at the actions of this person. Draupadi is standing over there in front of the officers who ordered the subordinates to rape her throughout the night. She is standing there naked with all her wounds very visible to the officers, and these officers, especially Senanayak, he is the head in charge over there. It is unbearable for Senanayak to look at it, because he can order the action but he cannot see the impact of the action. Now Draupadi's body herself becomes the text and asks the reader, that is Senanayak, to interpret it. Do you dare interpret it? Do you understand the consequence of the interpretation? That this is what you have done, this is your language and my language is showing you the mirror. So when you go through this part of the text, and especially here, that she spits a gob of blood at Senanayak's white shirt, this is very symbolic. Why? Because the white shirt symbolizes something pure, because that is how Senanayak thought himself to be, that I am pure, I am just a strategist and I am going to give orders and I am going to get results. But Draupadi writes her own language, the language of the blood over Senanayak's shirt. Draupadi pushes Senanayak with her two mangled breasts, and for the first time Senanayak is afraid to stand before an unarmed target. So now Draupadi's hand being very much tied up at the back, she is not able to push Senanayak any other way but with her entire being, with her entire body, whatever is left of it. She is moving forward and she is pushing the body of Senanayak backwards. And of course, we know that this kind of approach for any normal sane human being will be extremely frightening. So Draupadi makes use of that kind of language through her body. Now we are going to study excerpts from another wonderful novel written by Alice Walker. Alice Walker is the recipient of the prestigious Nobel Prize Award. She represents the Afro-American community residing in the United States of America. I have discussed about this novel in other lectures as well. In this particular lecture, we are going to read some of the excerpts which very much are relevant for our current topic and discussion. Now this is the starting invocation. It is a kind of invocation on the part of the narrator. She says, "To the spirit without whose assistance neither this book nor I would have been written." So the particular narrator, the narrator's name is Sally. She is writing for the very first time in her life, and she is writing letters to God. She is telling whatever happened in her life. She uses this expression, "Neither this book nor I would have been written." So the book is being written on one hand, and the author alongside the narrator, or the author within the narrator's being, is being written into this particular prose. Because once this prose becomes public, everyone is going to read it and they will reconstruct the entire thing from these very words. So their essences, their beings, their experiences are being constructed, will be constructed even in the future as long as these words survive. He loved looking at Shug. Now let me tell you, the language is definitely English, but it is not the English that we are accustomed to hearing. This English is the English spoken by the Afro-American community, and you will not find correct spellings, you might not find grammatical coherences, and you can also notice that the punctuation marks are not placed properly, the spellings are wrong. All of these things are the features of this particular language. He loved looking at Shug, I love looking at Shug, but Shug don't love looking at but one of us, him. But that the way it's supposed to be. It is actually suppose. I know that, but if that's so, why my heart hurt so much? So this is written by the narrator who is barely educated. She has received no formal education. We will come back to this right after we read this particular excerpt. He was pulling on her arm. This is an excerpt from the opening page of the novel. He was pulling on her arm. This he is the father of Sally and her is the mother of Sally, the narrator. She say, "Eat too soon." See, there is no punctuation mark here. There's supposed to be a comma and an inverted comma. Fonso, "I ain't well," then an inverted comma close. So no punctuation mark you will see. That is how this book has been written. The entire book has been written. Finally, he leave her alone. A week go by, he pulling on her arm again. Now we understand that this is something which is being seen by a child, because the child does not understand why the father is pulling at the arm of the mother, because the father is requesting some kind of sexual company and the mother is refusing. This is interpreted by the reader, but at that point of time, Sally is not aware of that. She said, "Nah, I ain't gonna. Can't you see I'm already half dead? And all of these children?" She went to visit her sister doctor over Mason. So she says that I am already half dead. So I understand, you as a reader understand, or anybody who reads the novel understands, that the mother has given birth to several children and her health has failed. She is not well and she does not want to engage in some sexual activity with the husband, and the husband is insisting this or trying to force her into it. She's saying that I'm already dead. So she leaves at that point of time and goes to visit a doctor in Mason. Left me, that is the narrator, to see after the others. The narrator is the eldest sister. She takes care of all the children in the household. He never had a kind word to say to me. And this he is again the father, that is Fonso over here. So he never had any kind word to say to Sally. Just say, "You gonna do what your mammy wouldn't." So from this particular sentence, we understand that her father has been sexually assaulting her throughout that period of time her mother was not there. So this kind of suggestive writing, of course, after this there is a brief description of the entire act, but this language that she is using and the language which is representing the female body over there, the condition of the body, especially of the mother after having mothered so many children, and the subjugation of the daughter by the father, the mentality of the father towards the female race altogether, gives us a very difficult, very complex, very dehumanizing picture, very derogative picture of the society that Sally was living at that time. This is again another famous short story by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and these are the excerpts. The story shortly is Jane is living with her husband and her husband is a doctor. Jane thinks she has fallen sick. Her husband and Jane then move to a different place, a different mansion, where her husband asks Jane not to do any writing or not to work, just to stay in a particular room. And that room has a very sickly looking, very bad kind of yellow wallpaper attached to it. Firstly, Jane just looks at it and she's filled with disgust. Secondly, gradually she becomes obsessed with the patterns of the yellow wallpaper, and slowly she starts seeing images of women who are creeping inside the yellow wallpaper. And at one particular instance, when the reader realizes that she is no longer using a third person pronoun, she is not using "I see her, that woman." No, she is saying "I am creeping. I am the woman in the yellow wallpaper." And she starts scratching the walls and locking. After having locked the door, she pulls away all the paper from the room and she creeps. There is a difference between creeping and crawling. Crawling is more like a baby can crawl, and creeping is like a spider creeps. So she creeps throughout the floor and she creeps at the wall. She brushes her shoulder against the wall, and finally she starts pulling out all the wallpaper, tearing it away. So this is the starting phase where she has started developing those images. It is the same woman. Here again we see that this is, at this point of time, the author is not representing herself, but she is saying that there is another woman. I know, for she is always creeping. She is always moving on all her fours. When you creep, you drag your body by the help of your limbs. Most women do not creep by daylight. This statement is very fantastic, because what is creeping? Why is she saying most women do not creep by daylight? That means most women creep by night. The action that will follow is something which most women do, that is creeping by night. But here I can creep smoothly on the floor, and my shoulder just fits the long smooch round the wall, so I cannot lose my way. So what happens next is, here you see that woman becomes I. So here Jane is actually the person who is creeping around in the room. She is dragging her body on all fours, and that is something which people would not approve of, at least sane people. So this phase shows her descending into that neurotic state, that paranoia. I kept on creeping just the same, but I looked at him over my shoulder. But he did faint and right across my path by the wall, so that I had to creep over him every time. Now, at the final stage, when her husband comes and sees her moving around in the room like that, he becomes very afraid, very terribly afraid, falls down and faints. But she is unaware of that. She does not want to know that her husband is there. She is not helping her. She knows that her path is the one which surrounds the room, surrounds the particular furnitures, and that her husband's body is just a kind of barricade in that path. So what she does is she moves over his body also. So this kind of representation of the female body creates a kind of discourse which challenges the general idea of the angel in the house. This is the rejoicing of the mad woman in the attic. This is something which is fascinating, that when you know that your body is the text, and once your body is out open in the public and it will be interpreted by the terms of its actions, you might reconsider going on with the same body. What happened was, Emily Dickinson became an introvert. She shut herself in her room. She wouldn't meet anybody. But she wrote 1800 poems which were published posthumously, that is after her death. She was a wonderful writer, but she did not meet anybody. Sylvia Plath, Anne Sexton, Virginia Woolf, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, most of the writers that are prescribed in your course are suicides. They have committed suicides at one point of time. Now, why is this stopping of the body so interesting for the readers? She is a problem because she is a suicide. And suicides are seductive because we all want to die sometimes. Dead women artists of any age are a problem because it has always been easier for this culture to love their artwork when they are not alive, to interfere with our relations with them. So this is something Ariana Reines writes in an article in Los Angeles Review of Books. It has historically been too easy to praise what is dead and too difficult to nurture what lives. And she is a problem because she is a martyr, and ours is a culture addicted to martyrs and martyrology, powered by competition and self-loathing, which leads to the wrong kind of death. So the women writers are never nurtured. The women writers throughout the history of literature and philosophy and politics, they have always been a subject of criticism. They have faced the onslaught of the male hegemony once they have released their works. They have stopped doing everything. They have stopped the interpretations of their body just by ending their lives. So this is very fascinating to observe how the woman's body, how the female body becomes the seat of interpretation, encourages interpretation, discussion and discourse in all the aspects of life. So thank you for following through this lecture. These are some references which might help you in preparing for this course. I thank you for watching this video. See you in the next lecture.
Understanding oneself, understanding others, understanding society at large, understanding the nature, these are all driven by basic human curiosity. We would all love to understand why things happen, what happens, what is the final outcome, why certain things fail. These are all exercises that we perform in various domains of knowledge. Therefore, knowledge in various domains, you would realize they are actually social artifacts. They have to be rooted into historical perspective, they have to be culturally salient, and there would be socio-political reasons behind this. Whether you talk with respect to engineering sciences, whether you talk with respect to physical sciences, biological sciences, social sciences, that is the reason why humanities and social sciences should be understood by all of us. The knowledge that is segregated, that is divided with respect to areas, specializations, all of them needs to be understood in its context. And what provides the context? It is the social reality. How do you correlate knowledge in a given domain with the cultural reality, with the social reality, with the socio-political compulsions? Okay, how do you understand the law of nature, okay, in its totality? And for doing that, you require the understanding of humanities and social sciences. Say for instance, if you are trying to understand the effect of a particular bacteria, a virus, any microbe, how it affects behavior, how it affects the organism, human being, you start looking at it from a pure biological point of view. If you are trying to look at a particular type of a wavelength, say for example, you are emphasizing on the understanding of the effect of radiation on human life, you are looking at things from a physical point of view. You are looking at the corresponding changes inside the body, you are looking at the physiological side of the understanding of the information. You are trying to understand why, despite knowing the risk that is inbuilt in the process, why still human beings engage into it. You are looking at it from a pure behavioral point of view. Why society at large admire things which has full of risk. You are trying to understand things from a pure sociological point of view. Why people use particular set of words to explain those experiences. You are trying to understand things from the linguistic point of view. So, there are a whole lot of things, and then finally you try to combine all of them to say that what are the guiding principles in life. Then you say you are looking at life, you are looking at humanity from a pure philosophical point of view. And this is what social sciences courses provide you. They provide the context to you in which you would be finally positioning the understanding of the knowledge in any given domain. It could be engineering, it could be sciences, it could be medical sciences, it could be social sciences stuff, it could be humanities stuff. So, contextualizing the knowledge is what humanities social science courses help you obtain.